Have you ever had someone walk into your life and act like they owned everything you worked for, as if all your sweat, blood, and history didn't matter? Imagine standing on the porch of your family's ranch, the place your grandfather carved out of raw dirt with his bare hands, the place your father built barns and fences and poured his entire life into. And now imagine a stranger in designer sunglasses strutting up to you, wagging a stack of papers and saying with a smirk, "This land is ours now. Sign here." That's the day I met Karen, and that was the day she made the biggest mistake of her life, because she thought I was just some quiet rancher who didn't know the law. What she didn't know was that inside my house, sitting at my table, was a lawyer ready to turn her whole game against her. This is the story of how Karen tried to steal my ranch and how she walked away humiliated, powerless, and broken. My name is Luke, and I've lived my whole life on this ranch. 3 generations of my family poured everything into this land. My grandfather bought it after serving in World War II. My father grew up raising cattle and fixing fences, and I inherited not just a property, but a legacy. The smell of hay in the barns, the creak of the old windmill, the long dirt road leading to the house. Every piece of it carries memories. When you live on land like this, it isn't just property. It's who you are. That's why, when the new homeowners association formed in the suburban development that popped up about 2 miles away, I barely paid them any attention. They had nothing to do with me. Their little manicured lawns, their freshly paved streets, their mailbox regulations. None of that had anything to do with a working ranch outside their lines. Or so I thought. I figured they'd stay in their world, and I'd stay in mine. But then she showed up. Karen. If you've never met a true HOA tyrant, let me paint the picture. Perfectly pressed blouse, sunglasses that probably cost more than a month's ranch supplies, a haircut that screamed, "I want to speak to your manager." She drove up my long dirt driveway in a spotless white SUV, parked like she owned the place, and got out with her stack of papers already in hand. She didn't even greet me, just walked up to my porch with that smug expression. "Good afternoon," she said, though her tone was more command than courtesy. "I'm here on behalf of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. We need you to sign these documents so that your property will officially fall under our jurisdiction." I nearly laughed. "Ma'am," I said, "this ranch isn't part of your development. I don't need to sign anything." Her smile tightened. "It will be easier if you just cooperate. We've expanded our jurisdiction. It's really for your benefit. You'll have community services, neighborhood protections, and, of course, uniform property standards." I looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "This land's been in my family since before Willow Creek even existed. There's no way you can just expand into my property." Her eyes narrowed. "Refuse, and we'll make things very difficult for you." That was the moment I knew I wasn't just dealing with some nosy neighbor. This woman was a shark, and she thought I was easy prey. But she didn't understand one thing. Ranchers don't back down, especially not from bullies. Over the next few weeks, the harassment started. At first, it was small things. Notes left on my gate, claiming my fence was a violation of community standards. Then came fake citations tucked under the windshield of my truck when I drove through their neighborhood to buy feed from the local store. One time, I came home to find a bright orange, warning non-compliance sign nailed to my fence post. Every time I ripped one down, I felt my blood boil hotter. I knew she was behind it. Her and her little HOA cronies. Neighbors warned me about her, too. "Karen's trouble," one said. "She fined a family $200 for painting their shutters the wrong shade of blue. She once forced a guy to tear down his shed because it didn't match the aesthetic." That was the kind of woman I was up against. Power-hungry, petty, and relentless. But this time she was biting off more than she could chew. The breaking point came one Saturday morning. I was fixing the hinge on my barn door when I saw her SUV crawling up my driveway again, dust kicking up behind it. She got out with 2 other HOA board members trailing behind her like little ducklings. This time, she didn't even pretend to be polite. She slapped the papers down on the hood of her car and said, "You're going to sign these today. Enough games." I stood there with my wrench in hand, sweat dripping down my back from the morning's work, and I felt something shift inside me. Anger, yes, but more than that, resolve. She wasn't going to push me around anymore. She thought I was alone. She thought I was uneducated, uninformed, powerless. What she didn't know was that I had already spent weeks preparing for this moment. I had called my lawyer, Mr. Daniels, a man who had been handling ranch property disputes for decades. He knew the law inside and out, and when I told him what Karen was trying to pull, he chuckled and said, "She's walking straight into a trap. Let her come. We'll be ready." So when she barked at me to get inside and sign, I wiped my hands on my jeans, gave her a smile, and said, "All right then, come on in." The smirk that spread across her face made me want to spit. She thought she'd won. She strutted into my living room like she owned the place, her two cronies behind her, and plopped herself down at my kitchen table. She pushed the papers toward me. "Sign here. This will officially make your ranch part of the Willow Creek HOA." But before I could even reach for the pen, a voice cleared its throat from the corner. "Actually," Mr. Daniel said, standing up from his chair, "you'll be the one signing something today." Karen whipped her head around, eyes wide. She clearly hadn't expected anyone else to be there. Mr. Daniels adjusted his glasses, pulled out a folder, and laid it flat on the table. "My client has no legal obligation to join your association. In fact, your repeated attempts to harass him, issue false citations, and coerce him into signing documents fall under harassment and attempted extortion. Every note, every fake ticket, every sign, we've documented it all. And if you don't cease immediately, we'll be pursuing legal action against both you and the HOA board." The color drained from Karen's face. Her cronies shifted uncomfortably, looking like they wished they were anywhere else. She tried to bluster, of course. "That's absurd. We're well within our rights." "No, you're not," Mr. Daniels cut her off smoothly. "I've already checked county property records. This ranch lies entirely outside your jurisdiction. You have zero authority here, which means every action you've taken against my client has been illegal. If you'd like, we can take this matter to court, but I assure you, you won't like the outcome." Silence fell over the room. You could hear the tick of the old wall clock, the creak of the floor as Karen shifted uncomfortably in her chair. For the first time, her confidence cracked. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then finally stammered, "We were just trying to maintain community standards." Mr. Daniels leaned forward, his voice calm but sharp as a knife. "Community standards don't apply here. What applies here is the law. And the law is not on your side." Karen's hands trembled as she gathered her papers, shoving them back into her folder. Her two board members practically bolted for the door, muttering something about needing to be elsewhere. Karen lingered just long enough to glare at me, her face twisted with humiliation. But there was nothing left for her to say. She stormed out, her heels clacking on the floor, and a few minutes later her SUV disappeared down my driveway, a cloud of dust trailing behind. The relief I felt in that moment was like the first breath after being held underwater. Weeks of stress, anger, and frustration lifted off my shoulders. I turned to Mr. Daniels and shook his hand so hard I thought I'd break it. "Thank you," I said. He just smiled. "Sometimes," he replied, "the best thing you can do is let someone dig their own grave, then show them the shovel." Word got around fast. Within days, half the neighborhood knew what had happened. Karen's reputation, already shaky, took a nosedive. People whispered about how she'd been humiliated at the ranch, how she'd nearly dragged the whole HOA into a lawsuit. Some even started questioning her leadership. The queen bee had lost her sting. And me? I went back to my ranch, to my cattle and my fields, my barns and my fences. Life returned to normal, but with one important difference. I'd proven to myself, and to everyone watching, that bullies only have as much power as you give them. Stand your ground, know your rights, and sometimes you can watch them crumble right in front of you. So if you've ever felt powerless against someone who thought they had all the control, remember this: arrogance is their weakness, and justice has a way of finding its way to the surface. Karen learned that the hard way, and my ranch is still mine. Always will be.